Welcome to Financial Services What's Up?
This podcast brings together experts from the financial service world to figure out what financial market participants could and should be doing to embrace the biggest challenges and opportunities of the financial sector.
I'm Björn Ebert, the Financial Service Leader at PwC Luxembourg.
And I'm Sandra Paulis, an asset management partner at PwC here in Luxembourg, and very keen to discuss our industry together. Welcome back to the Financial Services What's Up podcast, where we unravel the complexities and opportunities of the financial services sector in Luxembourg and beyond. And a warm welcome to Björn.
Hi Sandra, thank you very much. It was a long time we have not spoken to each other, and I think that a lot of things has happened, especially across the ocean. So I'm really looking forward to the podcast today to see what we do with that.
Definitely. And welcome to all our listeners as well. Today, we are very pleased to have François Mousel with us. So he's the managing partner of PwC Luxembourg and our guest today. And together with François, we will be discussing the results of the 2025 CEO survey. And we will have a special focus on the Luxembourg findings. For those who are maybe less familiar with it, so the CEO survey is actually a survey where we ask around 4,700 CEOs around the world from multiple industries, and we get a sentiment about what's going on in the world. And every 2 years, we're also asking the Luxembourg CEOs to make the Luxembourg results a bit more precise. So in Luxembourg, we had nearly 60 CEOs that answered the survey. And today, we want to actually discuss the insights, what's happening in the minds of the CEOs today to actually see what are the challenges, the opportunities, and the vision for the future. So François, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And so I'm super happy to be here. And I think I'm the intruder in the podcast. So to try to do my best to blend in the team where I know that you have already been collaborating quite well on the previous podcast. And let's see where we are landing.
Yeah, so to actually give a little bit more crisp to this podcast, we also organized a panel, following the publication here in Luxembourg of the insights from our CEO, where we invited our CEO community to actually exchange on the survey. So it's not only the questionnaires and the answers that we received, but it's also discussion that we had with all of them, with our community, to exchange on the survey, to discuss the insights. So I'm really happy also that both of you will actually integrate those discussion points into our podcast today.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we can say that, Björn, we were very happy about the resonance we had. So we had more than 60 CEOs also participating, to that event, which shows that exchanging among peers is important, especially in the times in which we are. And so we'll try in the answers to also give a little bit of feedback from that event about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're actually making a nice bridge because before starting actually around the CEO survey, we actually have to tell you that the moment or the point in time where the survey was released or where the survey has been performed, where the questionnaires have been sent to the CEO, this was actually the non-Trump environment. And then it has been released at the World Economic Forum. But since then, the geopolitical tensions, trade, protectionist announcement, many things have changed. Massive. I would say the change was even massive. So, François, I would actually like to start off with you. Looking back at what has changed over the last months, what do you think in terms of challenges will stand out if the survey would have been done today?
But it was interesting to see that in the official survey result, in fact, the geopolitical uncertainty and the volatility was not one of the top risks. So I guess that if the survey had been done a couple of months later, that would have changed. I think few people anticipated the level of, I would say, disruption that the Trump administration brought into the world. But I think that when we discussed also with the panel, and when I discussed with clients, by the way, many see it also as a wake-up call for the European Union because we might like or dislike the style of the Trump administration, but some of the I would say, imbalances that are pointed out are actually not completely wrong either. And so we can also see this as an opportunity in certain areas for the European Union to more take our destiny in our own hand. And so I think people are a bit mixed between fear of the uncertainty, but also somehow, excited a bit by saying maybe we can also take some areas more in our own hands, and that's healthier for our sustainable future as Europe also.
Take the responsibility on us again. Björn, if we look a little bit on Luxembourg, in the Luxembourg business environment, what do you think, the Luxembourg CEOs, how should they prepare for these challenges?
First of all, they see that challenges globally, and also they reflect about that, what that means for us here locally in Luxembourg. And I think the feedback we get via our event, but also via the clients, they really see it as an opportunity. So why see that as an opportunity? I think there are two important points. The first point is that Luxembourg really provides stability. It's a trusted partner in these volatile times, and it's really a reliable investment hub. Globally, if you would like to do investment, Luxembourg is the place to be.
Since many, many years.
Many years, you have the AAA rating and stuff like that. So I think that's super important. I think the second important point is the business mindset of the new government, which is in place now more or less 1 year. And I think this new government really play a crucial role, because they have really a competitiveness agenda in place. For example, they reduced the corporate tax by 1%. They abolished the tax taboo on ETFs to promote that product. They have certain other measures to really attract talent. We will speak about that later on. So I think that's really a bundle of stuff which helped really the local CEOs also to defend their business case here locally, and also to have positive messages to the headquarters. I think that's why overall they see it as an opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Now, when we are diving a little bit into Luxembourg and the ecosystem we are in, we know that Luxembourg is home to many local subsidiaries, and global companies as well. But the need to balance actually the strategic change, and I think the fact that you are part of a global structure, of a global corporate structures, and the fact that we have many of those subsidiaries here, how do you think the subsidiaries can actually drive innovation and positively influence the global strategies of the parent companies that most of the times are abroad, somewhere in the world?
Yeah, I think that's a very critical topic, and every 2 years it explains also many of the specificities of the answers that we see, because of course when you are the CEO of a subsidiary of a branch, you don't have necessarily all the cards in your hand.
Exactly.
Now, and that's why we insist also in the podcast, is the very reassuring part of the panel was that all of the CEOs really see themselves as very proactively fighting a daily battle to really carve out, I would say, a strategic business case and place for the Luxembourg entity inside the group. And certainly, personally, I think that this sentiment and this will also to fight for that is really fueled by the fact that we have the new government in place who has a very proactive business stance. The CEOs, they feel again more listened to. They also feel that the government and Luxembourg for Finance and others, they are help also on how they present internal business cases to their headquarters. So I would say the overall conclusion is to be really proactive and to really also see how to best position Luxembourg inside the headquarters. And we had great examples, like for example with Deutsche Bank also, who really managed to have certain functions in Luxembourg which are of strategic importance for the group.
Yeah, how to make Luxembourg relevant for the group, in this component. The other element that is coming out of the survey is in relation to the workforce, and the availability of workers, the key skills that we actually need here. This is actually one of the main concerns that is coming out of the survey. So in your experience, what are those skills and what are the steps that you would think could help bridge the gap?
I think the talent attraction is since years a big topic in Luxembourg. When discussing with the CEOs on the panel, I think what really came out is the fact that a lot of appreciation for some of the measures that the government has already taken in terms of easing talent attraction. There are various ones. We discussed specifically, I think, about a new impatriate regime, but there are other measures. And I think that some CEOs express the fact that helps. On the other hand, one of the conclusions also was to say that it helps for, I would say, high added value functions, where I would say most entities struggle is when you have, I would say, more junior levels that you want to attract, or lower skilled, lower paid workers, where indeed there is a bit of a challenge in Luxembourg because it's a high cost and environment. And that's an area where we also discussed about alternative delivery models. I would say to be a bit more creative, how to overcome that challenge.
Björn, any ideas about how we could overcome that?
Yeah, I guess I can give you really one concrete example because we at PwC, we also looked at our value chain and we asked ourselves, which part of the value chain we could put somewhere else, because as you just said, I mean, to get new talents into Luxembourg, it is really getting more and more difficult. Big competition, war of talents out there. So we also looked into that, and that's why we at PwC, we created in Porto our own company, our own, let's say, shared delivery center, where we really outsource certain parts of the value chain, where we think that's lower added value, and really keep the high added value here in Luxembourg. And we started this journey 1 year ago. And I think the positive outcome of the panel was that many CEOs look at that in Luxembourg to have that same model in place, replicating that model and leveraging that. And I think that's also one important point for the Luxembourg market overall. And that's one of the initiatives of the new government, that you really look at the high value adding task to add this really to Luxembourg.
Can you maybe say also a few words about why Porto?
Why Porto? I think for us it's important. We looked at something, an onshore place, because also of GDPR, data and so on. So we would like to have something within the European Union. And that's why we had several locations, and we decided for Porto because we believe there is really a big market of young talents, very well skilled, very proper English level, and we see that also now in practice. That was really a good decision to have to put that in Porto. And I think also the Portuguese as such and the Portuguese firm is really business minded, which is also very helpful and aligned with our values we have here in the firm.
But I think the challenge is really for me that the intellectual ownership and the entrepreneurial ownership is kept in Luxembourg. But you have some of the delivery capacity which is outside of Luxembourg, and I think over time, of course, that also the regulators and all the other stakeholders need to accompany that evolution. At the time when we opened Porto, we have, of course, discussed that with our regulator, which is the CSSF, and they were very helpful and proactive also to enable, I would say, that delivery model.
I think we can add as well that this is also a really nice place to work. You have beaches, you have more sun.
We've been there.
The
beach is 400 meters from our building, so meaning that our Luxembourg talent is very attracted also to see what we are doing in Porto.
I asked for reallocation, but it was not approved, so that was a pity. But I think just, Sandra, another point I would like to make is also because we talk also about talent attraction in Luxembourg, and beside, let's say, a new tax regime which has been put in place also for young people under 30, for example, 75% of your bonus is exempt, which is also an important message. I think the focus is also now even more on education, of upskilling of people, and for example with the university there will be also now a private asset master put in place, which I think is also a good sign for Luxembourg that we do a lot about education.
I think all in all, what you are saying is actually the business conditions have improved. There are many elements that are coming together. The strings are being torn from different directions. And when we are looking at recent government policies, the tax relief packages that you were already mentioning, other incentives, I would say, to also attract foreign talent. So that's a very positive evolution. Now, definitely, we have to do more to remain competitive. François, what would be additional steps for the Lux government to actually make sure that our position is being confirmed and even solidified for the future to remain a competitive financial hub?
Yeah, so there are many. So I mentioned only, I think, a few important ones. The first one is a defensive one. I think it's that we, I would say, retain in Luxembourg our supervisory authority, especially on the AWM sector.
The asset and wealth management.
Yes, exactly. Because, I think we believe that the quality of what is being done and being close also to the market is better done through supervision being done locally and specialized rather than a big entity for the whole of the European Union. Then I think a point that is mentioned by all of the CEOs and that was also discussed with the new government is the need for legal certainty, so that CEOs and everybody knows what are the rules of the game. They get answers. It could be sometimes a no, but then it's a clear no and relatively quickly. And so, in that sense, I think that the proactive attitude of the regulator and the administrations is really cited. So see already a lot of improvements in that. But I think this is really a journey and a continuous effort, so that also the actors really feel treated as clients and listened to. And that is a change we can now see since 2 years, is building up an ecosystem of collaboration between but on the one hand, the FS actors, the service providers, the ministries, the regulators, everybody, of course, respecting their own remit, not necessarily blurring all of the lines, but still listening to each other and finding common and together solutions. That is really something which, especially now in an environment which is changing, something which is really important. And also, this is I would say, an area where we as PwC always want to play a central role. And then the last one, and that might be the segue to your next question, is the importance of AI and technology, generally speaking, because we know that financial services is a domain highly impacted by technology, generally speaking. And so having also the right foundations there from a country perspective, the right skill set is something really, really critical for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this ecosystem about listening, really actively listening to each other, having your own agenda in mind, but still making sure that the market is also has a word to say, is being listened to. This is still something that has been extremely valued over the last years.
That's critical. Yeah. That's because that builds up trust. Mm. That doesn't mean you agree all the time on everything, but it means that you can express a view and you understand also decisions. To me, this is really the absolute foundation number one for the success as an open economy who attracts outside investment.
Okay, so let's keep that up, all of us together, even all the listeners. You made already the little bridge to technology and AI. So Björn, this is your question, huh?
Absolutely. I'm always looking for that question, each podcast.
Yeah, so the AI one, that's also a topic that was surveyed actually in the CEO survey. We all know it offers immense potential. But still, we experience some gap between the ambition and the execution, the real life, concrete, down-to-earth stuff. So what do you think? What could actually be the element to bridge this gap and ensure that AI is not only a buzzword, but is really creating the transformation across the value chain?
Yeah, very good question, Sandra. And I think that's reconfirming what clients in the panel told us. There is high ambitions, also on headquarter level, questions how we can execute and what are really concrete use cases. And I think it's always, starts top down, because what a good message is that around 80% of all CEOs use Gen AI on a personal level. Well, they play with that. That's already a good start.
Yeah,
And-
if you experience yourself, it's much easier to actually take it also.
Absolutely. I think the experience on yourself is really, really good. And I think a lot of them also look into their company that really also upskill all their people really to build a AI or Gen AI muscle. I think for a lot of them, it's really important to fully understand the technology. What they also told us, I think the second point, that they believe for the moment it's really driving efficiency gains. Around 60% of the CEOs told that. They less see it as an additional revenue generator. It's more really the efficiency gain. And then looking at the Luxembourg level, I think we are somehow a back office place, a lot of administrative tasks we are doing, manual tasks we are doing. So there's a high degree of automation. I think there Gen AI will play a key role in the years to come. And that's great to see in the survey that, again, 50-60% of the CEOs would like to integrate Gen AI in their workflows, in their technologies, in their processes, combined with upskilling of the people. So that's a bit the perspective, but to have that also, let's say, you need a foundation for that. And coming back to Luxembourg level, I think on that one, you see we have really world-class data center. We have a world-class infrastructure in place. We have now this super Veloxina supercomputer, which could be used. We have been now appointed one of the 7 nations in Europe to have an AI factory.
Yeah.
And that is all bundled also by Lux Innovation, which plays really a key role to upskill, to find startups, to upskill companies, to really advise them, to give them access to this Gen AI technology. So I think that's, let's say for me, also super important for a country that you have these capabilities and you put this foundation forward. And last but not least, also Luxembourg have Clarence, which is a sovereign cloud, which also, I think Luxembourg is one of the first countries who has that in place. And that will be also used by the regulator going forward as one of the first ones, I think, globally. I think that's also a very, very good message. And we are on a good track here on Luxembourg, high ambitions, and we see also execution.
Super. Happy to hear that the execution part is also coming so that we have something concrete. And as said, it's the whole ecosystem that actually needs to play together. And what we learned is that there are many elements put in place. So now grasp the opportunity and take it from there. I actually have one last question for both of you. Is in relation to the world we are living in. There's rapid change. Uncertainty, I think, is the word that we are currently using. We don't know what's happening tomorrow. And I think even while we are recording this podcast, or when you are listening to this podcast, there may be news that are changing certain elements again. So what would be your piece of advice that you would give to fellow CEOs to actually ensure that the companies are not only surviving, but they are really prosper in the next decade?
But for me, clearly, one is to elevate yourself above, I would say, the short-term noise and all of the volatility. I was in the US a couple of weeks ago and spoke to a special advisor who advises companies how to position with the new Trump administration. And he said many companies, they are looking for short-term tactical advantages, negotiating, an ad hoc deal. And I think that to thrive, you really need to look at the long-term trend, your long-term USP and what you want to really achieve. I think with that attitude, you will sleep better at night. And also that's the only way to really thrive over the long term. So not be absorbed by all of the news, the WhatsApp, the social media all the time, but really look at the underlying trends and what your role as a business is inside that world and what long-term advantage you want to play out.
So focus on your USP and
Yes.
keep the long-term vision in mind.
And keep calm, keep an even keel.
breathe.
Breathe. Sometimes drink a beer and a glass of wine, that helps also in that regard.
Björn, what would be your piece of advice?
Yeah, I think for me, the piece of advice is that, connectivity matters most than ever, I would say. I think also especially personal relationships are matters. And that also means personal relationship to your clients, to your staff, but also in our context now really to the headquarter. to defend the Luxembourg business case, to say why we are here a center of excellence, to promote also a lot of good incentives and measurements the new government put in place, also to communicate that to the headquarter level, and their personal relationships are really matters, especially in these uncertain times we have, for me more than ever.
And especially in a technology and AI environment, I think the biggest risk is that you underinvest in human relationships. I think you should double invest in human relationships because they become even more critical.
I'll take that one. So a glass of wine, a beer, making sure that you stay connected with your personal relationships, and I would add a barbecue as the sun is coming out. So taking all of that together to ensure that you foster your personal relationship and value the human element in it. As a last question, as always, the question that we ask to our guests is about a number that struck you, that came to your attention and that caught your attention. What is your number, François?
But I think the number that caught my attention in recent discussion and conversations with clients and stakeholders is really 10 trillion.
Wow. Okay.
So
Tell me more about the 10 trillion.
But 10 trillion is, and then we can debate about how the number has been measured, but it's huge. But that's really the private wealth that in Europe is, I would say, sitting on savings accounts, more or less unproductively. And which could be unlocked to finance many of the challenges that we are going to face going forward. And so one of the priorities really also of the European Union is to make those savings productively invested. I think that's a huge opportunity for Europe. To take
especially for Luxembourg, I would say.
but also because you also for Luxembourg as an investment vehicle hub, because hopefully many of those 10 trillion will be structured and channeled through investment vehicles, and that's where we are specialized as a country, and we should not be ashamed of that. So that's my number. That's the anchor for the future. That's the number that makes me optimistic also for many different reasons.
So thank you very much for ending the podcast on this positive note. So I take the 10 trillion euros, not to be confused, as an opportunity for Luxembourg to make sure that we actually thrive, that we use the ecosystem we are in. I would like to thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
For discussing with me today. And then I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you very much. And I think now it's time for that beer and glass of wine.
With pleasure.
Yeah. See you soon.
See you soon.